What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny on the track here, back with another video, and it's Bristol, baby. As Dale Earnhardt Jr. said, it is Bristol weekend, which I'm super excited about because I liked the Bristol dirt race, but something about just Bristol on the concrete service, what did I say? Service? No, surface, where in my opinion it should be. I loved what they did with the dirt stuff. But it's good to see Bristol have a day race. We'll have the Bristol night race in the playoffs, but a good old fashioned day race at the greatest Coliseum in the world. So super excited about this weekend. Real quick, just to recap Phoenix a little bit, what a performance that was by Toyota. I mean, that was special. What Christopher Bell did, in that race to, I believe, 22nd. He basically started on that final like restart prior to the long green flag run. And he was just able to work his way through the field. His car seemed like it was on steroids. It was Toyota, quite frankly, just was the class of the field. Super impressive from Bell to Reddick to Hamlin. I guess Reddick cooled off a little bit there at the end, but Reddick was great in the first two stages. Hamlin, Truex looked great. Of course, the sophomore, the young stud Ty Gibbs was amazing. I mean, Toyota was the class of the field, a statement win, not only for this new short track package, but also the new body and design they have with the new Camry. And also just, if there's a Toyota in the championship four, which I assume at this point there probably will be, they have to feel amazing of winning that race in the championship at Phoenix. I mean, they were tough to beat, and they're going to be tough to beat this weekend. But I'm going to say and let me do my little promo prior to us getting into the bets. But we'll leave it right now at but. Quick promo, NASCAR Betting Preview Show. It's the logo you see in the top right-hand corner. If you're listening via the NASCAR Betting Preview Show podcast feed, whether that's on Spotify or whether that's on Apple Podcasts, appreciate it. Make sure you hit that follow button to get all the best betting content on that podcast feed and podcast channel, from trucks to Xfinity to Cup, like myself. We've got it all. So make sure you give, all the betting content creators a listen through that podcast feed. We appreciate it. And if you're, listening through the YouTube, thanks. Appreciate that as well. That doesn't go unnoticed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching the first time. That'd be great. And finally, the NASCAR Betting Preview Show, the actual show, X or Twitter, whatever you're calling it that these days. You can find that on X, 8 p.m. Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time. Give that a watch. Just another way to get betting content for NASCAR in the week that is, this week being Bristol. So with all that, I left on, but I said Toyotas were very strong, looked great, had the speed. But here's the only thing I'll say. They're going to still have speed this weekend, rather. I know that for a fact. They had speed last Bristol concrete night race. Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Truex, all were very fast. Even Ty Gibbs was fast. So they are going to have the speed. There's no doubt in my mind. But we have to remember, Bristol is a totally different track than Phoenix. Yes, they're both short tracks, but Bristol, right, it's only a half a mile. So it's half a mile shorter than Phoenix. Lap traffic comes into play. It's configured different. High banking. Phoenix, very flat. More strategy involved. Less clean air. So it's very hard to beat the field by 7 to 10 seconds at Bristol. It just is. Due to the fact that a lot of the things I just mentioned, lap traffic being one of them, as well as clean air. It's very tough to find clean air once you catch the pack. So yeah, speed is still going to be, and really even like passing cars is different. Phoenix, it is tough to pass. Bristol, sure, it's tough to pass, but it's tough to pass in a different way. Like some could say it's easier to pass, right? Because you really can execute a bump and run. Phoenix, quite frankly, you just can't do that. You got to run side by side and get the air on the quarter panel, and that's how you pass. Get door to door on a straightaway, drive it hard into one of the turns. So it's totally different. But I do think we still have to look at Toyota and say they're probably going to be the class of the field this weekend. So before I get to some Toyotas, let me talk about I guess some value on the board and some other teams and drivers that I think are going to be really, really good this weekend. RFK, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher. I expect them to be really good. They've been great at this track in the next gen era, whether that be on dirt or whether that be on the concrete service. I keep saying service, the concrete surface. My apologies. My goodness. But they've been really good. They've been the class or I should say, one of the classes of the field. Chris Buescher, um, tied third in overall speed ranking on Bristol on the concrete surface. Brad Keselowski right behind him, fifth um, in overall speed. So both those guys have been good, and of course Chris Buescher in the first year of the next gen car got a win. They also just look great on Phoenix, so that short track package has carried over year to year quite well. So I like Buescher. I like Keselowski. The numbers for them, not great. My book says plus 1,200. I was hoping we could get Brad at like plus two, plus 2,500, and Buescher closer to the plus two range. But I guess, I mean, I like these guys. So I think you attack that number right now. Maybe you can wait on it and hopefully it shifts, changes a little bit after practice and qualifying. But quite frankly, I'm not sure. I think both these guys are going to be good the minute we start practice all the way up to the end of the race. So RFK, I expect them to be good. I think there's maybe some props you could go top forward for those guys. Winning team as well, as in addition to betting them for the win. Another team that I like this weekend is SHR, Stewart Haas Racing. Going back to the speed rankings, Ryan Preece, top 15 in overall speed ranking on Bristol Concrete Service. They got the concrete surface. Chase Briscoe as well has had success here at Bristol in the next gen era. And we cannot overlook what Noah Gragson has been doing in that 10 car. In that 10 car, this is where it's been money, quite frankly, on these shorter tracks with Eric Almirola. Like Almirola was good at Martinsville. He was good at Bristol. So I like Gregson as well. Josh Berry, haven't really seen it yet from him, but he is a short track racer. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of match maybe that setup and feel of the car that we've been seeing from the 10 and the 14. To show some speed. So I like Stewart Haas Racing. I think Chase Briscoe right now, you can get him on some books at plus 6,000. I saw him earlier at, looks like he's down to plus 5,000, which means people see the value there. And then you look at Ryan Preece, plus 25,000. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a guy that led the most laps last year at Martinsville. So, and is it by, born, bred, raised short track racer. So I've seen some pretty good improvements from Stewart Haas Racing this year. Not crazy, but pretty good improvements year over year from Stewart Haas. They've actually had a pretty decent start to the season, quite frankly, a lot better than I would have thought. So I like SHR here. I think there's some good value on the board. Maybe you want to look at a Barry or a Priest top 10. Phoenix last Sunday, Chase Briscoe comes home with a top 10, and Gregson, I believe he finished 11th, or maybe he finished 10th. So, both those guys showed speed at the first short track we saw. So I like Stewart Haas Racing. Maybe that's a deep shot at a winning team bet. Or you just kind of look at those guys and say, maybe I'm looking at a guy like Priest to be the long shot, or Briscoe to be a really dark horse value pick. But I like that team as well. Two other ones before I get to the Toyota camp. Probably more just top tens is McDowell and Gilliland in the front row camp. McDowell has always been good at Bristol. It's one of his best tracks since he's been at front row. Coming off a top 10 in the playoff race last year. He is eighth in overall speed on this configuration of Bristol. So quite frankly, like I said, this has been one of his best tracks. And add the fact that they're now a tier 1 Ford program, I think we'll maybe even see a little bit more speed out of McDowell at Bristol this year. And again, coming off a top 10 run, as is Gregson and Briscoe at Phoenix. So, the short track package seems to be there so far after one race, but it seems like it could be there for McDowell. And then Gilliland, I mentioned the tier 1 Ford program, last year finished 16th in the playoff race for the equipment he was driving in. That's pretty darn good. The year before, 18th in that 38 car, when that 38 car, quite frankly, had nothing. So I wouldn't be surprised if Todd Gilliland's running right around 12th, anywhere from 10th to 15th at the end of this race. I think there's going to be some value there for a Todd Gilliland top 10. So we mentioned RFK, we mentioned SHR, and I mentioned the front row camp. Now you got to look at Toyota, right? And who's been the fastest at Bristol past 2 years with the next gen car? It's been Christopher Bell, who's been, it was the fastest car at Phoenix, but quite frankly, head and shoulders above the field at Phoenix, and has been head and shoulders above the field at Bristol. So is it a repeat on Bell? I mean, it might be. He hasn't won here yet, but he led the most laps, was the fastest car in the playoff race last year. Denny Hamlin ended up winning, who has been the third fastest car at the concrete configuration of Bristol. Bubba Wallace is another guy. Ty Gibbs was the second fastest measured in overall speed in the playoff race. So I'm just naming some Toyota guys here that, like, Toyota's just all over it on this configuration of Bristol. So I think with that, you kind of have to look at value. Is there value for Bell and Hamlin? They're both sitting at plus 500 on my book. I'm not sure. But if you think they're going to win, which, I think they're going to be the front runners, quite frankly, I think you go attack those numbers because let's say Hamlin and Bell start up front, they're 1-2. They could get close to like plus 350. Like, I would not be surprised. You almost want those guys to have a bad practice or have a slip up in practice and qualifying. So those two guys, but if we're looking at value, one of the names I have circled is Martin Truex Jr. plus 2,200. Now, here's the thing about Martin Truex Jr. He's never won at Bristol. It's one of the ones that's escaped him in his amazing NASCAR career. He's got one in the Xfinity Series, but he's never won in Cup at Bristol. Plus 2,200 for a car that I think will be very fast. He's coming off a great run in the playoffs at Bristol. I believe he finished, where did he finish here? Oh, I guess he finished 19th. But he started well, ran well in the stages. So look, he looked good at Phoenix. He's always been fast at this track. It's just every now and then something happens. And something will probably happen, quite frankly, because it just seems like a super speedway in Bristol, for whatever reason, Martin Truex Jr., he's never going to win at. But plus 2,200 for a very fast car, I think there's definitely opportunity to attack that number. And then the other guy I look at is Ty Gibbs at plus 1,200. I think that's going to slip even farther, maybe to plus 1,500. But Ty Gibbs, the sophomore, the kid is dialed in. His Toyota has looked sporty so far early in the season. I love what I'm seeing from Ty Gibbs. I had him preseason, one of my preseason bets, to win over a half race, which means he just has to win a race. It's part of a parlay I have. So I like Ty Gibbs. From what I saw at Phoenix, he can absolutely win this race. His team can absolutely bring the car needed to win this race. I have a really good feeling about Ty Gibbs this weekend. Let's not forget, I know the package was different, but he looked like he could win the Clash as well. And then kind of had a slip up with Logano. So I like Ty Gibbs. And then one other guy, in terms of, or I guess two guys in terms of value for more Toyotas is Eric Jones and Bubba Wallace plus 4,000. Two guys like Eric Jones had a fast car at Phoenix, like Reddick had a little bit of a slip up that kind of put him back, and then he gets caught in a four wide incident. His day is done, but he had the speed all weekend. Like that car was good. So Eric Jones and of course Bubba Wallace, who showed speed at Richmond last year. Bristol, of course, he's been good. He's seventh overall in speed ranking. So I know I've mentioned a lot of guys on this episode, but quite frankly, Toyota to me is going to be sporty. I think they're probably the bet to win this thing. I think it's you attack the board with the best value that you can find. That would be my advice this weekend for you. And I wouldn't be surprised if we, one of those dark horse like an RFK or Stewart Haas Racing shows up and is right there to win it at the end. So I'm fading Chevy. Larson has been great, but I am fading Chevy. I'm looking at Toyota and I'm looking at Ford to get it done this weekend. So those are my bets. I guess I'll run through them one more time. RFK, SHR, front row for maybe some prop stuff, and then Toyota drivers like Ty Gibbs, um, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. for that big value bet. And then, if you want to sprinkle something on guys like Bubba and Eric Jones, those numbers are there early in the week right now as well. So there it is. Talked about a lot of guys, went through a lot of stuff, but I'm excited. I think there is good value, even with Bell and Hamlin being at plus 500. I think there's good value on the board for us to find, and I'm confident. I feel like this is going to be one where we get a nice big win. So excited about that. Appreciate you guys watching as always. Give this video a like. It goes a long way for the channel. If you are a first time watcher, viewer, whatever you're doing, listener, hit that subscribe button in the bottom there to watch all the best motorsports content, from betting to hot news. We cover it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.